It is Saturday, April 12th, and stunning new poll numbers out this morning showing Donald Trump and his party have flipped modern-day politics upside down. Democrats no longer are the party for the people. They're the party for the elite, and the numbers back this up. Absolutely stunning. CNN panelists stunned into silence after watching Harry Hinton, their data reporter, read off these numbers. This is the best clip of the year, hands down. We're going to show you. Also, accountability finally coming for California. MAGA-aligned U.S. attorney has been tasked to uncover where the $2 billion tax dollars that Karen Bass lost, quote-unquote, actually went, intended to solve the homeless problem in L.A. Instead, the money vanishes. Well, she's in hot water now, and more stories as well from around the country. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. New polling has dropped from this past week, the week after Trump's Liberation Day. These polls all conducted post-April 2nd, post-Liberation Day, the hardest week, hands down, of Trump's presidency. Non-stop hysterics from corporate media and anti-Trumpers attempting to capitalize on the volatility in markets and these giant swings in the stock market, ratcheting up fear in this country over Trump's economic agenda, his trade policy, a policy that has a goal of onshoring, reshoring manufacturing, bringing back the American manufacturing base that's been stripped away over the last 50 years. All the negative messaging from Dems in the media, you'd think it would have at least dinged his job approval numbers. Well, not according to this morning's polling. Watch as this CNN reporter is left speechless after learning how Americans are feeling right now. Which party Americans feel care more about them, care more about you and me, the average American? Which party is looking out for the worker in this country? Watch.
This, to me, is one of the most shocking pieces of poll data that I truthfully have seen this year, or maybe in any prior year.
Really?
Yes, really, because I want you to take a look. Cares more about the needs for people like you. You mentioned it, Kate Ball. We got a tie, even after this tariff war had already started, split between Democrats and Republicans on how people feel. Which party cares more for needs of people like you? And why is that so surprising? Because I want you to take a look at prior years. Democrats always lead on this question. Back in 2017, before the 2018 midterms, 13-point lead. 2005, a 23-point lead for Democrats. 1994, which was a big Republican year, a 19-point lead for Democrats. And now, all of a sudden, a tie? All of a sudden, the Democrats, who are the party of the people, no more. We get a tie on this question, on a question that has traditionally overwhelmingly been a Democratic advantage. Which party cares more for the needs of people like you? It's truly something I would not have expected to see, especially after this tariff war had begun.
Where does it show that Republicans are making the most gains?
Yeah, again, you talk about party of the people. Look at this. Cares for the needs of people like yourself. Look here. We got non-college. We got those with a college degree. Among those with a college degree, it's the same score. 8 plus 18 points for Democrats in 2017, plus 18 points for Democrats now. But look among non-college voters. Look here. It was plus 7 for Democrats in 2017, and now Republicans had overwhelmingly gained, plus 9 points. That is, the gains have been concentrated, at least within the last decade, among voters without a college degree. The working class, that is where Republicans have gained even since the beginning of the Donald Trump administration. The Democratic base is now those with a college degree. Among the working class, those without a college degree, Republicans have overwhelmingly gained on this all-important question of which party cares more for people like yourself.
Your reference points are, as you were pointing out, just before a midterm election. So obviously, let's kind of look at that. Where do things stand for the fight for Congress?
Right. Okay. So you have this question, right? And then there's the question, ultimately, are Republicans going to get punished in this midterm election, in part because that's normally what happens, the party in power gets punished, but also because of this tariff war. And I want you to take a look here at the generic congressional ballot. Where we were in April of 2017, Democrats were already ahead by 7 points. In November of 2024 on this question, it was a tie, and then, of course, Republicans won control. Where are we now? It's Democrats but just by a point. This looks very much still like what we saw in 2024, not like what we saw in 2017. If Democrats think they automatically have a ticket back to control of the House, I'd say, hold on a second. Republicans still have a real shot at this, despite all of Trump's theatrics over the last month with this tariff war.
There really is interesting information coming out in this that you're pulling out. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you. I think it's interesting. Kate agrees.
For once.
For once.
This is bad news for Democrats. Trump has erased their advantage on the only reason the Democratic Party even exists. If Democrats no longer represent workers, then they're pointless. There's no point to their party. They then represent nothing. Now, it's always been like that. They've always represented nothing, both parties for the most part, but we're talking about perception here. Perception is everything in politics. Trump stripped them of their identity. Trump's for the workers, for the middle class, so inherently, Democrats are against them. They have to take the opposite of whatever Trump represents, and now it's morphed into Dems defending government waste, fraud, and abuse, fighting against the middle class, fighting for higher taxes, and that's it. And they don't like free speech. Dems representing Wall Street, Trump's taking on Wall Street, fighting for Main Street. It's clear as a bell, if you've been paying attention, really looking at all of this at face value. There's no other explanation because Trump didn't need to do any of this. If he was all talk, he wouldn't have crashed the establishment order this week. No other politician would ever have done something like that. They all know it needs to be done. They've been talking about it for years, screaming about it in speeches, but they're all too scared to do anything about it, to be the one who has to take on China and upset global markets, risk a financial downturn. It would be the easiest thing in the world if Trump just came in, continued propping up the status quo, said things that catered to the needs of Americans, but really didn't solve anything, didn't solve the problem. Instead, he's actually doing it. Batya Sargon, someone I think nails it every time she's brought on to one of these panels. She went on CNN last night and again left the entire CNN panel just stunned, gasping for breath, as it's just so obvious, she says, what we're witnessing, breaking it down in the most simplest of terms. Roll the tape.
Here's the way I think they're thinking about it. It feels like the direction they're heading in is that what Trump basically wants is for our allies to consume a lot more of our products and for China to produce a lot less of what we consume. And so I think what he's going for is a kind of soft global embargo on China. And the way that he went about doing that is he basically picked up a baseball bat and said to the entire global elites, that's a really nice stock market you've got. It would be a shame if anything happened to it. And the reason that I think that that was effective is, I mean, Lutnick is saying that they could never have gotten such good deals if that pressure that you're actually describing wasn't there. But I think that that was more designed for a domestic audience. And the reason that I think that is this. I've been thinking a lot about the 10 million Americans who lost their homes in the 2008 financial crisis and how President Obama's first act in office was to give $700 billion to the banks that caused it, including $30 billion in bonuses to the crooks who organized it. And I'm thinking about how those very Americans saw a president pick Wall Street over Main Street, and what they saw this whole week was a president willing to go out there and fight for the forgotten men and women of this heartland and take on the entire international global order.
Okay. First of all, you cannot say
Trump putting Wall Street and the world on notice that he is serious about fixing our trade deficit, showing the global elite, the power brokers around the world, all these CEOs, Wall Street, all these banksters, if you don't play ball, look how quickly your market caps will implode. You now have 90 days to get this fixed with us, to make a deal. You've seen what will happen if you don't. In another story, accountability coming to California. Good riddance. Finally, after years of blatant inflammatory spending by Gavin Newsom's uber left-wing government in these left-wing cities, a MAGA-aligned U.S. Attorney, Bill Essay, has been tasked to investigate where all the money has gone. His first assignment is to investigate where the $2 billion taxpayer dollars went that Karen Bass just disappeared, money that was appropriated to fight homelessness, given to the LA Homeless Services Authority, that disappeared last year while doing nothing to help the homeless. A court-ordered audit released in March found that this agency, under Karen Bass, had effectively lost $2 billion of your tax dollars. Vanished, gone. Karen Bass says the money wasn't stolen or lost, but rather her agency just can't account for it because of inadequate data systems, she says. Yet another audit from last year found that this same agency failed to reclaim millions in contractor advances for services that were never performed. What this means is Californians are the highest tax people in the country. Your state government takes up to 15% of your annual income, which is insane. But it also means if you have the nerve to take 15% of our money, you better be a damn near perfect steward of that money, managing it far better than I ever could. Yet they're the complete opposite. We've seen this over and over again. Florida, 0 state income tax, and the state runs flawlessly. California, 15% income tax, and they can't keep your fire hydrants pressurized. You're homeless, unsheltered. Well, if I was Karen Bass, I'd be worried because Bill Essay isn't messing around. He will get to the bottom of this. Roll the tape.
There are 75,000 homeless people here in Los Angeles County, and critics say as you walk around, there's not a lot of improvements despite billions of dollars being thrown at this problem. Well, now there's a new MAGA-aligned United States attorney here, Bill Essay, who's launched a federal probe investigating where homeless dollars are going. He estimates $24 billion in homeless funding statewide over the past 5 years, much of that spent here in Southern California.
We will get to the bottom of it, and if we find that any federal laws are violated, we will arrest and prosecute those individuals involved.
In a sit-down with Fox, the new U.S. attorney points to a recent audit that revealed more than $2 billion in homeless funds is unaccounted for here in L.A. County alone.
That is not a rounding error. That's a lot of money. So we want to get to the bottom of where that money went. We have the ability to execute grand jury subpoenas, search warrants, all the tools available at our disposal.
California is the perfect example of what big government gets you. Like anything, running a business or an agency in government or the actual federal government, every operation should be ran as efficiently as possible, but that's difficult. That means doing it with as few people as possible. And anyone who runs a business knows this, or hires employees. You know this better than anyone. When you start out with a few employees, everything runs very efficiently. As you begin scaling to 10, then 20, it keeps getting harder to keep things efficient. Do you run better at 10 people, or did you run better with 3 people? When you get to 100, how many of them are even necessary? How many of them are doing the same job as someone else? In another story, Barack Obama's Ivanpah Solar Electric Power Plant has officially failed this week. After 11 years trying to operate unsuccessfully, the plant calling it quits. 11 years ago, Barack Obama hailed this as the future of clean energy, spending billions of taxpayer dollars to subsidize it, holding ceremonies to its opening, all for naught. The only thing it did for sure, the only thing it actually powered for sure, according to the AP, is killing thousands of birds and tortoises. Watch.
In China, not in India, but in California.
The Ivanpah solar plant went live 10 years ago and was supposed to produce clean power for at least 30 years. Instead of solar panels, it uses giant mirrors to concentrate the sun's energy on these towers, which boil water, generating steam, creating electricity.
It's going to put about 1,000 people to work, building a state-of-the-art facility.
As part of his climate agenda, President Obama gave Ivanpah $1.6 billion in federal loans, a $535 million grant, a 30% tax credit worth about $600 million, and an accelerated depreciation schedule that allowed investors to write off their capital investment in just 5 years.
All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.